Hey there, this is Luke, and I wanted to answer a great question that I got yesterday after the service, kind of a follow up to the sermon I did yesterday on love. And if you weren't there, it'll be posted soon. But we talked about the greatest commandment, which is to love God with everything and to love your neighbor as yourself. And I got a fantastic question afterwards. Someone astutely pointed out that I never actually really defined love, and I think that's kind of interesting. But they also kind of asked, what do you do with people that are like especially hard to love, or what does it look like when people are really hurtful or um, really selfish, and it's just like no matter what you do, it doesn't seem like the love you pour into it helps very much. I think that's a really interesting question. And the answer that I gave is sort of twofold. One is, I think that there are certain kinds of relationships that have been so destructive and so abusive in the past that the main way you should love somebody is by just praying for them. Certain people have been so cruel, so abusive, so mean that to actually engage in ongoing relationship is probably dangerous for you and dangerous for them and dangerous for other people. And out of wisdom and protection from those experiences, it's wise to maintain some distance and yet to continue to love that person by praying for them, even as Jesus said that we should pray for and love our enemies. But the second thing is a little bit trickier in some ways, because it's the people who you can't really justify not being around anymore that are the hardest to love. And the Bible says in Colossians 3 that we're to bear with one another. And I often think it's harder to bear with one another sometimes than it is to forgive or to love with one another, when it's not like someone's doing anything sinful. It's just they're incredibly annoying. And the other thing I think is there are probably people that think that about each of us as well, that find us very difficult to bear with. But what do we do when we're called to bear with people or to live with people that are just really difficult? And I think that 1 Corinthians 13 gives both a good definition of love and some instruction on how to do that. And here's what it says in 1 Corinthians 13:4. It says, "Love is patient and kind. Love does not envy or boast. It is not arrogant or rude. It does not insist on its own way. It is not irritable or resentful. It does not rejoice at wrongdoing, but rejoices with the truth. Love bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things." And what I think that that's saying is that love is to be increasingly those things: increasingly patient, increasingly not rude, increasingly kind, increasingly trying to believe the best. And the reality is that that is hard to do over time. And so what I told this particular person, I said, for the people that especially are just difficult to love and it's really draining, ask the Lord to help your capacity to grow. That over time you'd be more loving, more kind, more able to endure, more able to spend time with that person. And pray that God would allow your heart to be that way. And then one last thought I have on it is that it just seems like this is a great example of what God does when he loves us, because we're not that lovely. And we're continually rebellious against him and continually disobedient and continuously dishonoring him. And yet he keeps loving us. It's a great example. It's a hard example. It's a hard thing to do. But I thought it was a great question and worth talking about. Thanks.